Built for this network, for the strong, not the weak.
No escaping this. 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 No escaping this.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or whatever time it is where you are. How are you? Hope you're having a great day. This is the End of the Bench podcast hosted by yours truly, HRap on Built for This Network. You can, if you are listening on Built for This Network, please hit the like button, share, tell a friend to tune in. If you're watching me live on YouTube, I still need you to hit the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and share, tell a friend to tune in. You'll be doing them and me a gigantic favor, in my personal opinion. It's always good to see you. It is Tuesday. That means it's time to get things cracking. I do have a special guest this evening. And you know how I start off every show. I want to acknowledge my family. Anytime you acknowledge your family, you send up blessings and protections for your ancestors that have transitioned. And they will send up blessings and respect to them. They send down protection to you. So I do this every week. I acknowledge my family, those who are here and are not. That's everybody connected to the Whitmore, Pollard, Turner, Battle, Cotton, Harper, Bailey, Thompson, Crisp, Lansdowne, Slagans, Duncan, and you know me, my father, my brothers, my sisters, nieces, nephews, cousins. We are the Williams clan. We're in the building. You already know how that goes. Now. I do have a special guest. I want to let you know, if you're unable to complete the task this evening by listening to the podcast in its entirety, I want you to go to Spreaker.com, Built for This Network, and you can also go to YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio Podcasts, Deezer, Google Podcast Addict, as well as Amazon has picked up the show. Amazon has picked up the show. You can go to Amazon, look up Built for This Network, and get all our programming. Thank you for tuning in. This is going to be an interesting show. I have an awesome person. I have had a change of heart in the way I look at certain things in the general populace. And right as I was turning the page, this beautiful person, I'm going to call it, we're the same age, we ain't too young. But this beautiful person came into my, it came into my purview. And this person is doing wonderful things. Because this is going to be a one-on-one conversation, we're going to talk about her initiative and the work that she's doing to enhance our community, to protect our young people, and move forward. I'm going to do what I normally do in the middle of the show right now. And then after this happens, this is a moment in history, and somebody in history I think everybody needs to know about. Once you see this, when you come back, we'll be on the phone with Kathleen Cormack. She's an awesome person. I want you to get to know her, and it's going big time. It's all good. Please pay attention to this. It is important. It's brief. I'll be back shortly.
For 18 years, had charge of keeping up with the times and paying off. And I went down the 31st of August to try to register. And after I had gotten back home, Mr. Marlowe told me that I would have to go down and withdraw my registration or leave because they wasn't ready for that in Mississippi. And I said, Mr. Marlowe, I'm trying to register for myself. So I had to leave that same night after I had gone down in August. And then I spent one night with Mrs. Tucker, and after about 2 days in September, they shot in the house 15 times, thinking that I was there.
Mrs. Fannie Lou Hamer walked with a limp and still had a blood clot behind her eye from being severely beaten by police in a Mississippi jail. She was the youngest of 20 children born to sharecroppers in Mississippi, where she had spent much of her life picking cotton until she was fired for trying to register to vote. And yet, President Lyndon B. Johnson was terrified of her, terrified of the appeal she would make in 1964 before the Democratic National Committee's credentials panel on behalf of the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party. The Freedom Party, an integrated coalition of delegates, had come to Atlantic City on August 22nd, 1964, to challenge the all-white Democratic delegation from Mississippi, many of them rabid segregationists. Hamer demanded that the Credentials Committee seat the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party delegation instead. Johnson, who needed the support of Southern Democrats to win re-election, was beside himself. He told advisors he couldn't take the pressure. Last night I couldn't sleep, he said, according to the White House tapes. About 2:30, I woke up. I do not believe I can physically and mentally carry the responsibilities of the world and the Negroes in the South. He wanted Hamer and her new political party stopped. The president, who would eventually sign the landmark Civil Rights Act of 1964, sent political advisors to persuade Hamer not to make her appeal to the Credentials Committee. When she refused, Johnson called an impromptu news conference to make it impossible for the national television networks to cover her testimony live. It didn't matter. Hamer's testimony would become one of the most powerful speeches of the Civil Rights Movement. Hamer, born 100 years ago, on October 6, 1917, in the Mississippi Delta, rivaled Martin Luther King Jr. in her command of audiences. My grandmother had the privilege of knowing Miss Hamer. And Miss Hamer, from her definition, was one of the most powerful women that the world had ever seen. And I'm not talking about black women. I said the most powerful women that the world had ever seen. She did not possess high education.
200 or 300 people carrying out and lynching you, but it's in a small, several way. They let you starve to death, not give you jobs. These are some of the things that's happening right now in Mississippi. See, Mississippi is not actually Mississippi's problem. Mississippi is America's problem. Because if America wanted to do something about it, what has been going on in Mississippi, it could have stopped by now. It wouldn't have been in the past few years, between 40 and 50 churches bombed and burned.
Yes!
You see, and this leads me to say, all of the burning and bombing that was done to us and the houses, nobody never said too much about that, and nothing was done. But let something be burned, by a black Because you see, so many of our ancestors was killed because we have never accepted slavery. We had to live on it, but we've never wanted it. So we know that this flag is drenched with our blood. So what the young people are saying now, give us a chance to be young men, respected as a man, as we know this country was built on the black backs of black people across this country. And if we don't have it, you ain't gonna have it either, because we gonna tear it up. That's what they saying. And people ought to understand that. I don't see why they don't understand. They know what they've done to us. All across this country, they know what they've done to us. This country is desperately sick, and man is on the critical list. I really don't know where we go from here.
The truth has set me free.
That's one of our less popular, more powerful ancestors, Fannie Lou Hamer. Most of us may only know her from a line from a rap song. It's "I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired." No, rapper Supreme, Andre 3000 did not create that line. That was from that sister. The reason I showed you her today is because I have another powerful sister coming on shortly, and it shows you nothing moves in our community or in this country without the sisters from our community putting forth excellent effort, doing wonderful things, as well as the brothers and our ancestors and our present elders who helped along the way. See, this is why you have people fighting things like critical race theory. You have people fighting things like everything that she accomplished by the Voting Rights Act and things of that nature. These are the people like her and people who put in the work for our community is the reason those things are being fought. Because in the event that you fool around and learn your history, what you will do is be as powerful as our ancestor Fannie Lou Hamer and other sisters, Shirley Chisholm and others who were fighting in the Civil Rights Act and making a difference in the United States history. With that being said, I want to introduce you to our esteemed guest. Her name is Kathleen. She has an initiative, CWP. She'll be able to give you more information. She'll be able to say, we're going to say hello right now. How you doing?
Hey, how are you?
Good to see you. Good to see you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. I love that whole setup back there in the background.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I love it.
Now, I want to introduce you Kathleen Cormack. She's a native Chicagoan. She no longer lives here. She got up out of here. She's doing wonderful things with our young people down in Florida. And I think that's a hot button place. Kathleen, introduce yourself and then we'll move forward.
Okay, yes. Once again, I'm Kathleen Cormack, originally from Chicago, born and raised. No longer there, as Brian has said. Currently living in Florida. Been here for about 6 years, but lived in West Virginia for at least 7 years after I left Chi-Town.
Okay.
And a little bit about me. I have my bachelor's degree from Western Illinois University, and I actually have my master's degree in higher education administration from Loyola University, right on the north side. And I'm also a marathon runner. I've run 5 Chicago marathons and 2 half marathons.
Congratulations. I've watched a couple.
Yeah, it's a little different when you're running them.
Oh, yeah. It's a lot different. Yeah. I know I couldn't do it. I couldn't run around the block at this point. But congratulations on your marathon. Congratulations on everything. With your background in education, this explains how you were involved how you got involved with children. Please give us your background on education, and then we can move forward in a traditional conversation kind of way instead of just a bunch of blah questions that really mean.
Exactly. Okay. Yes, actually, interestingly, background education. I will say I actually worked for the Chicago Public Schools for 4 years as an assistant teacher. Now, I have done things prior to that, but right now I'm just talking strictly about education and my transition into that. So I worked for Chicago Public Schools for 4 years as an assistant teacher. But prior to that, years ago, one of my first jobs, even when I was a junior in high school, was working as an assistant teacher at at an elementary school on the west side. So actually, once I got into education, I was actually pursuing my bachelor's degree at the time while I was working as an assistant teacher. So I got my bachelor's degree as I was working in education, but then, did a few things other than education. But when I went back for my graduate degree at Loyola, I decided I would pursue higher education because I found out I really like being on the college campus.
Okay.
So that being said, I guess you could say I have a pretty good grasp of education, both in K-12 and also with college age. So, which is kind of neat because it has given me an opportunity to work with kids from the age of 5 all the way up to like young college students. So, and starting, my program, but I'll kind of let you lead us into that. But you're absolutely right. Having a background in education, for me, it's a good segue into developing a program where you're going to be working with youth already.
How did you, because I got a friend, she's in education, she's an educator. When did you say, hey, I want to go into education? Because my friend Evelyn West, she did it at, I remember in 6th grade, 7th grade, she told our teacher, Miss Ethel Adams, I'm going to be a teacher. When did you find out you wanted to do that?
Oh my goodness! I probably should say, and this is not to brag. It's the old, black don't crack. I'm older than what people might think, so I'm really not going to say that I knew when I was in grammar school that I wanted to go into education. For me, I can't really pinpoint exactly when, because as I said, I've done a variety of things. I worked for Amtrak as a train attendant. I worked for the airlines for a little bit. So I kind of dabbled into quite a few things. But the thing about education, interestingly, I found myself back into that and then staying with it. So I will say, I do think that I have a great interest in interacting with young people. So I guess to answer your question, that would be once I got back into education after having worked for the school system for a while and then, getting back into the job market. I do find that I love the interaction. I like being around that young energy, watching kids be creative, and you're dealing with all these different personalities. And I will also add, which is something I forgot to say, I've actually been a substitute teacher. That's currently what I do now. I'm not really working in higher ed at the moment, even though my master's degree is in higher education. I worked in Washington, D.C. Right after grad school. But then after we moved to West Virginia, and then we ended up here in Florida, I worked for 3 different public schools as a substitute teacher. So I worked for the West Virginia Public, worked for the city, a city in West Virginia as a substitute teacher. I've worked at here now working as a substitute teacher. And there's one more, but it escapes me. Not Chicago. I've never been a substitute teacher in Chicago.
Okay.
So I have a little bit of a background in, working as a sub. And again, having that background and working with young people. And that's currently what I do now.
What that does for me, that puts your humanitarian drive on display, because everybody knows that educators are underpaid, and a substitute educator is probably twice as underpaid. This lets me know that this is a work of passion, and I congratulate you on that, because a lot of people stand around and hem and haw, and you just say, hey, let me take my coat off, let me get my hands dirty. So I salute you on that. I really appreciate it, because a lot of people don't want to deal with children, and my degree is in juvenile justice, and initially, before I got sucked into corporate America, that's what I was going to do exactly what you're doing. Now, you're in West Virginia, you're being a substitute teacher. Now, how's the academic environment there versus other places that you've worked at?
Well, actually, let me back up. I should say I have been a substitute teacher for 2 different school districts, which is West Virginia, when we lived there, I worked as a substitute teacher for the Berkeley County schools. And then I work as a substitute teacher currently now here in the state of Florida, the Daytona Beach area. But when I worked in Chicago, that was back in the 90s. That's when I worked as an assistant teacher. So my mind got a little foggy. I've been a substitute teacher for 2 counties, but I've worked for 3 different school districts. But I will say to you, Brian, that actually my goal once we moved here once we decided to leave West Virginia, and I had already left Chicago in 2007, was to find work in higher education.
Okay.
That's where my passion is. I do love interacting with youth, but I also love being on the college campus. But because there are limited opportunities here in Daytona Beach, that's how I ended up becoming a substitute here. So, but the good thing is I already had that background to fall back on after not being able to find work to pretty much use my master in higher education. As you and I both know, sometimes, okay, you can always be a substitute teacher because as you said, some people want to do it and some people don't. I won't lie and say it's always easy, but for me, you're absolutely right when you say you have to want to do this because I would not go to anybody's school to be a substitute teacher if I did not want to interact with you. Right. You can't pretend on that. And this is a good segue into you when you said, what's the difference in the different school districts for West Virginia and now working for working in Florida. To me, I think education it just kind of depends. Because as you said, we all know that teachers, and I'm not a certified teacher. I'm a certified teacher. We all know that many times teachers, no matter what city they're in, unless they're working for a larger city, they don't really make much money. So I can say that here in Florida, I really don't know if I notice that there's a really big difference in being a substitute teacher, because I'm not with the kids 5 days a week. I look at it like this. Kids are kids. A 10-year-old, But I will tell you that here in the Daytona Beach area, the school, and this is also true for Berkeley County when I worked in West Virginia, the demographics, of course, the majority are Caucasian. So having said that, I do find here in the Daytona Beach area, I do find myself, and I purposely have done this, I decided I wanted to be a substitute teacher, primarily at the schools where it's majority black youth. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It definitely does. I mean, you're a black woman, and that love and caring for your community and your people shines through. I mean, it's a labor of love. Again, it's a sad commentary that teachers are not paid wonderfully, but I'm gonna show you how important and how much I respect what you're doing. I used to do battle with teachers. I was the king of the class clowns in every single solitary elementary grade through high school. And every one of my instructors had they are the reason I'm here. I mean, first grade, Miss Bradley, second grade, second grade, that lady was horrible. But third grade, Miss Johnson, Miss Bullock in fourth grade. The fact that I can remember these people when I'm 50. Miss Dow, sixth grade, Miss Adams, seventh and eighth grade. They made sure that we were well-rounded. They actually poured into us. It was a wonderful situation. So trust me, I get it. And you being a sister, you got nieces and nephews. And this is, to me, what you're doing is an example to all the people in our community. Because a lot of times we get caught up in, I've made it. I got a master's degree. I'm making good money. Me and my wife are doing this nice thing over here. And you act as if your sister's kids and your cousins and everybody else are not left behind. And you say, okay, I'm living a solid life. I'm living okay. I'm doing okay. But I want to give back specifically to my community. So, I commend you for that.
Well, I appreciate that. I really do, because I do think in the past few years, it has become it was a conscious decision. When I worked as a substitute teacher when we were living in a place called Falling Waters, West Virginia, I did that for a little while because, again, I had left Chicago after after getting my degree from my master's from Loyola, because my first job offer was to work at a university in D.C. You know, and I loved it. I mean, I didn't live in D.C. I commuted in because, as you know, D.C. is very expensive. So I actually commuted on a train from West Virginia to D.C. It was like an hour and a half. A lot of people did that. But then after being in higher ed for a few years, and then we just kind of decided we wanted to make a move. I did teach for a little while. I taught at a community college as an adjunct. I taught English 101. You know, then I, you know, produced 3 books, you know, took some time off working and just focused on writing. But then we decided to move to Florida. That's a whole nother conversation. I can probably say this. If I had known that there would be limited opportunity, and this kind of goes back to when you're saying that the passion, and I'm going somewhere with that to say, had I known that there were not going to be as many opportunities here in this area, I don't know if I would have come here. However, I do realize once I decided to become a substitute teacher here, and then, you know, starting the whole CWP conversation with police, I realized that this is why I'm here. So it is an assignment to work with youth, but particularly to just make a conscious effort. And I told myself I want to be in a classroom where the kids who look like me can see somebody who looks like them, because I tell you, I rarely see black substitute teachers. I don't even think I can tell. I might have seen maybe I've been a sub now here in Florida for 4 years. And I don't see that many black substitute teachers. I'm not saying they don't exist, but I can tell you, I don't think that there's that many. So, yeah, so I know, I realize now that my calling, you know, is here, and this is, you know, where I'm supposed to be, simply because I am to interact with youth. It's not always easy, as you know, but again, you have to want to do this. If you don't like kids, you're not going to do well in an environment where you're working in a school district.
And you know what? Again, you mentioned calling. Hopefully I'm going to give you a little inspiration by quoting one of our ancestors, W.B. Du Bois. He literally said the integration of the schools will happen, and what they would do is, he said, I'm butchering this quote, but I'm going to compress it. Basically, he said, when they change these laws about integration, what's going to happen is our kids are going to be disinterested, and our kids will be subject to other people's opinion of them. They will be a caricature of somebody else's imagination. And then when they integrated the schools, people like yourself, as you stated, everything you're saying is Dr. W.B. Du Bois and our good brother who created Black History Month, Carter G. Woodson.
Right.
He said that you guys would lose opportunities. It went from 80%, 85, 90% black teachers and administrators down to like 4%. And wow. You are a glowing example of what integration did to our academic situation. And again, a lot of people hear my academic history and they go, "Oh wow, that's horrible," because I've never sat in the classroom next to a non-black kid. 95% of my teachers were black. And people go, "Oh wow, that's horrible." But
they're saying it's horrible because, you know what, Brian? Can I just take a moment to? I want to at least acknowledge whoever's tuning in. I want to be considerate and thoughtful. I just want to say, I don't know. I mean, this is my first time doing this with you. I don't know if they can see me and hear me. I'm sure.
Yeah, they can.
I just want to say hello to everybody. hello. Thanks for joining in.
Yeah, they can see you. They can see you and hear you. Occasionally, they may throw a question at you. I'll put it on the screen like this, and then you'll be able to answer.
Okay, I see. Okay, this is cool. Okay, I just wanted to, so a couple of people did say, "Welcome, Kathleen," and I forgot to acknowledge.
Yeah, that's my buddy, Jungle Brother, and the guy who's a part of my network. His name is Joe.
Okay, great. But yeah, I just wanted to say that. But yeah, so, you know, it's interesting. My experience has been, every teacher I had, again, I grew up in Chicago, West Side. Every teacher I had in elementary school was black, with the exception of 2.
Ditto.
You know, yeah, interesting. And I mean, I didn't all black. You know, I grew up in, straight up West Side.
Where were you at?
I'm sorry.
Where were you at?
Oh, I was on Hermitage over there near Madison, near the Chicago Stadium.
Mm-hmm. Hey, I was over there too. You know, William B. Gladstone right there on Damon?
Yeah.
That's where I was at. That's my elementary school. Yes.
Damon and what?
Damon and the it's really Washburn and 13th Street, but Roosevelt Road is the big street near.
Okay. Yep. And I went to high school. I went to Lucy Flowers High School my first year. Then I transferred to Harrison High School, which is on 24th in California. It's not a high school anymore.
I'm familiar with Harrison. Watch this. I went to Westinghouse.
Oh, you went to Westinghouse.
So we just missed each other right around the corner.
Yeah. Now, Westinghouse was a little further.
Yeah, just.
California 26.
No. I was down the street from Lucy Flowers.
That's right. Yeah, from Lucy Flowers. Yep.
Because it was an all-girls school then.
Yeah, it was an all-girls school. Yep.
Yes.
So I went there for my first year, then I transferred. But, interestingly, and where you and I connected, I know you connected with me through when I was on a Lamar King show, but I'm saying this for the audience to say you and I connect now a lot on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
We follow each other, and we've been having great interaction.
Great dialogue, yes.
But I noticed when we're on Twitter, there are some people, there are some black people, and they'll say that they didn't see a black teacher until they got to be in, and I'm thinking, I find, so it's interesting that you say that, because I'm like, wow, so they haven't seen a black teacher until they got to what, like all of my teachers in grammar school were black with the exception of 2. Even those 2 were really nice. But I'm just saying, for me, I'm so glad I grew up to what they were able to see because from Head Start to 8th grade, I went to the same school.
Yes.
And it was just so good to see teachers who look like me.
Yes.
So I just find it surprising when some people they say they didn't see any black,
And that's the one, I often talk to my audience, and I'm not even call them audience, my supporters, because without them, there is no me. I often talk to my supporters and tell them how segregated Chicago was. And that right there is the one of the few benefits of that segregation, because we only saw us in power position. Like the first person I ever known to have a PhD was my elementary school principal, Dr. Falk. And then everybody at Westinghouse who was in power was black. And so I didn't understand, go to HBCU. I don't understand no white people in charge. It was like, white people? What do you mean? Right. It was crazy, so yeah.
Exactly. So I think, for me, I can say the fact that I had, when I started, at 4-year-old, and my mom, Head Start. I started right at Head Start. Mm-hmm. Stayed in the same grammar school up to 8th grade. Mm-hmm. I can say, for me, I believe that having black teachers then, with the exception for those 2 women who were still really nice, it helped to shape me in a way that I feel has made me comfortable, if that makes sense. When I look back now, just growing up in an area that was all black. Obviously, when I went off to junior college, that's the first thing I do. I didn't even go off to a 4-year school. I went to junior college first. That's when I started saying, well, no, I take that back. Harrison High School had, a few whites. It was mostly Hispanic.
Right.
Of course, at Flowers, it was all black.
All black.
But once I got to junior college, that's when I started Triton College. I went to Triton College out in, River Grove?
Yeah, River Grove, Melrose Park over there, yeah.
Yes, exactly. And that's when I started really interacting with more white people. And when I started noticing little things. Don't get me wrong, I've met some great, this is not there are some black people I don't get along with, so I'm not trying to go there. But I'm just being realistic when I say, once I got to junior college and I started, because, at this time I'm fresh out of high school, and I started noticing how interacting with some white people and certain things that they were saying, do. That's to me when your world becomes
it's a different situation.
Okay. I'm sorry?
I say it's definitely a different situation.
Exactly. It really is. So I say that to say, for me, when I look back on it now, I'm glad my experience was what it was to have people who look like me. And I'll also say this, and I promise you I'm done.
No. You here to talk. You here to talk. Don't worry. Don't worry.
And I can honestly say this, and I'm hoping the people in the audience, I know that they're listening in, and but that they'll process some of what I'm saying. I hope I say something at some point. I always want to impart something that I will lead somebody with something positive. I'm just saying this to say too that when I grew up as a little black girl, I could remember just being in my neighborhood, seeing all these nice looking black women and handsome black men. So I'm Brian. When I think back on it, I realize for me, it's like, wait a minute, is that why I'm so secure with who I am as a black woman? And I don't fall into there is no, just because you're white, you are not the epitome of beauty.
Yes.
Because I grew up with, as you guys would say, some fine black women, and handsome black men. So I saw that as a little girl.
Yes.
Very pretty black women. So when I think back on, I'm just glad that I had that to fall back on. But anyway, I didn't mean to go on.
Oh, no. I totally, I identify exactly what you're saying. And that's why, like, people, again, I talk to my supporters all the time, and I say it's time for us to start moving around each other again, because it will be little kids going, I want to be like Miss Kathleen. I remember Miss Adams was gorgeous. People say my mother was gorgeous. I'm not saying that she wasn't, but I'm just saying I can't say it. Other people said it. My Aunt Margot, my Aunt Judy, all my aunts, as they used to say back in the day, were foxes. Then you had the brothers going around in suits and nice cars, and they were going into houses. That West Side was filled with people who owned their own houses and buildings and things of that nature. Then the South Side was equally beautiful. So you're right. I totally agree with you. I identify with that. That segregation did me and you and our generation a world of good, because all we saw was each other. And
exactly.
Me and my brothers Wilkes, my brother Ben, we do the show called Forecast on Monday. We review movies and documentaries, and we do one a month. We do an old school movie. We did Cooley High, and I was telling them, but I grew up in Old Town. We had a black-owned barbecue place, a black-owned pizza place, a black-owned Chinese food place, several black-owned restaurants. I didn't eat McDonald's on a regular basis, or even semi-regular basis. I didn't eat McDonald's more than once a season until I got the job when I was 16 to pay for prom. So it was just
access to other things.
You're right. So I totally identify with what you're saying, and that's probably why you're doing what you're doing, because you're in a situation to whereas that's all when you're in that segregated environment, that's all you know is black. So it's an innate ability. I mean, it's an innate need to give back. So
now don't get me wrong. After I've definitely been in other white spaces. I'm a little older than other black. But so I've done quite other jobs I've had where in those white spaces. So all my things I've definitely done. But I see what you're saying. We're talking about I think I'm taking what you're saying more as the foundation.
Yes.
That was set.
Yes.
But and I'm glad for that. Someone wrote a comment, which I'm sure you can see.
Yeah, it says integration. I'll read it for you. Integration.
Yeah, one of those things that look good on paper, but was one of the worst things for our black community. Yeah, many would agree with that. Would agree with that.
Yes. I agree with it as well. He also just put in another one. Kids need to see success in order to dream success. Amen.
Yeah, they do. And I think they also need to see, especially black kids, I believe, and I stand firm on this. We're all going to come with a different perspective, and I'm sure we'll get more into CWP at some point. But I just want to say that I think for black youth, I personally believe they need to see people who look like them.
Most definitely.
Kind of like what you and I were able to see when we were in grammar school.
Yeah. I'm telling you, I think that's the reason I do what I do and you do what you do, because we only know helping and black people. That's all we know. It's inculcated into our system. So we go out into the world and do our charitable deeds universally, but then something brings us back home. to the foundation. So I definitely think that's what it is. And until I honestly believe, Kathleen, till whatever bug that Kathleen and Brian has becomes contagious, we will continue to struggle. That's just my personal.
I think so too. I think, and there are there's so many other Kathleens and Brian's out there.
Yes.
What I'd like to see happen is if we can connect some dots and we constantly kind of meet each other. Because once we can do that, then we can start building something great. Because I feel that it is my responsibility.
Amen.
Now that I've had my experience and whatever mistakes I've made, and if God has led me here to this area, I mean, I am not crazy about the state of Florida. Let me just be clear on that. But I have accepted that, okay, we're here now. This is, my husband's retired. We're going to someplace warmer. We're here. Now, how do I make this work in God? There must be a reason you sent me here. So, and that's why, interacting with the youth. And and especially when I don't see that many who look like me in front of the kids. And let me say this too, and maybe somebody that's listening to us might want to chime in on this. I don't know all the information about it, but since we're talking about schools, and I'm sure, Brian, you probably know this. You could probably enlighten me a little bit. I didn't know until a few years ago that the Jewish, correct me on this, the Jewish community, they send their kids to be educated to Jewish schools. Is that correct?
Yes, most definitely. They even have a Saturday school, and most of our Hebrew or Jewish communities have a segment of the week in which you I learned this in 1997, and one of my homeboys, he was a white guy, he was a Greek guy. His name was Nick Kalamotosakis. Shout out to Nick if you're watching. Nick told me he used to go to Greek school every Saturday. Nick said right here, Dave Trope said right here, Dave was a Jewish guy. Dave educated me on so many things in regards to the Jewish community, and I can't think of Crown Heights. No, it's not Crown Heights. It's a segment of Brooklyn, New York. They don't even have the same police. They don't even have NYPD. They have their own police force.
Oh my goodness! I did hear somebody was talking about that.
Yes. And see, that's the thing. We're so busy chasing. Okay, since we're talking about let's talk about it. Frederick Douglass. Today, a couple 158 years ago, yesterday, Frederick Douglass has this speech in which he talks about the 4th of July. Right. But one of the things he says is he told us as a community, stop celebrating holidays. And then he educated us on what they used to do, because Frederick Douglass was born enslaved.
That's right.
Frederick Douglass said the reason that he said we should celebrate no holidays. He said, according to Frederick Douglass, the white men who ran these death camps, because the plantation is a nice way to say it, ran these death camps, used to get us drunk and have dance contests for us, so we could feel like we're a part of it and strive to be American and let go that anger. Like one day we'll be accepted. And the holiday is the trick it's the carrot. Okay, it's Christmas, get drunk. And they will force these people, basically, they will drug us and get us drunk as possible and make us dance, entertaining them and fooling us into one day this could be you. And that's why Frederick Douglass said we shouldn't be celebrating the 4th of July. We shouldn't be celebrating Christmas. We shouldn't be celebrating Thanksgiving. And we invented, for those who don't know, we invented Memorial Day. Seriously, the first Memorial Day was 1863, May 1st. And white people took it over and moved it to the 26th. That's documented history. Black people invented Memorial Day because when that war was over, we went and dug up our ancestors and gave them proper burials. And that's where Memorial Day comes from. But Frederick Douglass wards off all celebration of holidays. That's what they call Juneteenth Freedom Day as well. And another Freedom Day is January 1st.
New Year's Day.
New Year's Day, because that's the day the Emancipation Proclamation was signed.
I was just getting ready to say that.
So,
because even though Lincoln freed the slaves, what was it, 1863 or something?
Mm-hmm.
It didn't go into effect until
65.
Exactly.
And for again, just in case anybody don't know this, she signed it in 63 in January. He didn't give us guns until November 64, and in May 65 we won it. So he didn't free us, we freed us. We freed them. And then the Emancipation Proclamation freed our ancestors, allegedly freed them in the South. That's like President Joe Biden freeing somebody in Mexico. Y'all got the next day off. No, it don't work like that. They were a separate country, so it doesn't work. But yeah, anyway, that's enough with the history. Let's talk about Kathleen.
Okay,
Kathleen,
you like that history. I can talk about that all day. Good.
We got you in Chicago, West Virginia, D.C., down to Florida. You retired. You living a happy life.
I'm not retired.
Oh, your husband is retired?
Hubby is retired.
Okay.
I still work. I don't plan on retiring anytime soon. I'm sorry, but then I said my husband's retired.
Okay.
That's how we just. But no, I still work for the school district here, and I'm also a writer. So I know I'm still very much busy.
Okay. So you got this busy life going on. You got this happy. You're living in a blissful marriage. Your husband is retired. You want to move to someplace warm. You move to Florida.
You're talking to my husband. Sure, I'll take that.
Oh, so now you start this initiative. What happened to make you do that? And for the people who just tuned in, you are listening to Built for This Network. This is HRap. This is the End of the Bench, Build and Destroy, where we build up our community, destroy the lies and propaganda around our community. Check us out on Spreaker.com as well as here on YouTube. Please finish.
Yes. So CWP, okay, Conversations with Police. I started this initiative in 2019. It was the summer of 2019, actually June to be exact, because I met with one of the police chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I started CWP, Conversations with Police, is because, again, it goes back into what you're saying about having that passion and desire to work with youth, particularly our young people. I feel like while my calling is for Black youth in general, I do feel that I do feel a certain pull toward Black males. Not to say that I don't interact and mentor young Black girls, because I do. But when I started this initiative, I specifically set it up for young Black boys. I'm gonna call them boys. They're not young men, until they get to be, 20s. That's another thing I don't like. I don't like when people refer to our 10-year-olds as young men. They are still boys.
Mm-hmm.
People need to see them as boys. So I decided, well, what else can I do other than being a substitute teacher and other than mentoring? So I realized as a substitute teacher, after I would have after the kids, now I'm talking high school.
Mm-hmm.
I'm specifically talking about once I started subbing in high school. Once I, did the lesson plan and made sure I took care of business and made sure they were doing what they were supposed to do and they were done with that, I would interact with the students. I'm not one of those substitute teachers that just go and sit behind the desk. I like to interact, especially when there's a classroom filled with, boys and girls who look like us.
Mm-hmm.
So I would find, Brian, that I would just start a conversation, with the climate that we're in, with all the senseless killings. I would just start a conversation with some of the Black boys and say, so what do you think about the police? Now, mind you, when we moved here, a year after we got here, I met with my husband and I met one-on-one with each police chief in our county, with the exception of 2. I know who the 2 are, we just didn't meet one-on-one with them. And it's at least 12, so I met with at least 10, plus the sheriff. Why did I do that? And this will kind of tie into how I started CWP. Because again, as we know the climate that we're in with the senseless killings, the Trayvon Martin, even though he wasn't killed by a police officer, still, he was still a Black male who was gunned down who shouldn't have been.
Mm-hmm.
And you had all the other killings, the Mike Brown thing and all the other ones.
Philando Castile, the list is endless.
Exactly. So I decided when we moved to about a year after we got here, I said, you know what? I want to meet with each police chief because I want to sit down and talk with them and find out what their leadership skill is like as a police chief. I reached out to each one, and Brian, I can fast forward quickly to now to say I have a good rapport with each police chief in this county, and they are very supportive of my initiative. One of them is black. He just became, Daytona Beach just got their first black police chief. He just came on January of this year. And I can say that I am blessed to have the support of each police department with my program, CWP. So having said that, when I met with each police chief, I can see that when, my husband and I, we walked into the office. I mean, they knew I was coming. I called in advance to set it up. You could tell at first they were like, they didn't know why I wanted to talk with them. But once they started talking to me and they saw who I was as a person and what my questions were, they kind of like a relief. And they told me after the fact, they said, Miss Cormack, Kathleen, we wish more people would do what you did. Usually when people want to meet with us, it's to complain. But you wanted to just come in and meet with us just to have a conversation. And I said, yes, I wanted to know what your leadership skills are like, because as a black person, a black woman, I see what's going on. So if I'm going to live in this county, I need to know, what do you do as a police chief if you see something not right in your department? So I met with each police chief. We sat down one-on-one and talked. So fast forward to 2019, after I was having a conversation with some of the boys at the high school, and I would say, so, what do you think, what do you think about, police? Because I want to engage them, because I have nephews that look like them. And, that's just another way to connect with young black boys and girls. So I would ask the black males. And I can tell you, Brian, and you're probably, and the guys listening, you guys probably won't be surprised to hear this, but they would say, most of them, their response was, I don't like them. I don't trust them. Nah, I don't trust the police. And so, I started, okay, so, why is it, and I want to know why. I mean, in my head, I think I know why. It's a whole history behind that. But I don't want to assume anything. I want to find out for them, engage me. So, what is it? And they would tell me, because, they stop us for no reason. Me and my friend, we walking down the street, and they'll just pull us over. And I started getting all this kind of feedback. And that's another reason why I can say I like being a substitute teacher, Brian, because I don't go into the classroom as a substitute teacher. I go in and I write on the board, I am an educator. And it's not just about me being a substitute teacher. It's about how do I connect with these youth, particularly youth who look like me. What can I leave with them? How can I really engage? So getting back to CWP, I started thinking, well, what can I do to get these young, specifically black males, to maybe want to talk about why they don't like the police? CWP was born. And I remember emailing one of the police chiefs, who is my founder of CWP. Not the black one. He's white, but he's, really, really good guy. They all are, because they know what I'm about. Although I do, as I said, I have the support of all of them, including the one who's our police chief, who's now the black. He's very supportive of what I'm doing. And they have facilitated some sessions with me. So it just turns out the police chief in one of the cities here, he's not from Florida either. He's from up north, Pennsylvania. So, I think he must have sent me an email about he was having a meeting with people in his community, etc. And he said, I'm always looking for ways to engage more. And I said, I was just thinking about coming up with an idea about how to get young men to engage more. And he said, okay, well, I'm going to give you a call. He called me, we talked, we set up a coffee meeting. CWP was born. I wrote out a list of things that I thought, what guidelines we should follow, what age I wanted to target. And that's how CWP, Conversations with the Police, came to be. So primarily what we do, I reach out to the administrators of the schools, and I let them, I can tell you, not everybody's on board. Not everybody's going to be supportive of what you do. But thankfully, I have two schools here, and the one middle school, it happens to be the one where it's majority. It's still, I think, predominantly white, but the majority of black kids there is the highest one in the county.
Okay.
The principal there jumped on board from day one. He was like, he's no longer the principal, but now they have a black lady principal. She took it over. She was like, well, I like what you're doing. Let's keep this up. So then I go to the high school, and basically it's what it says, Conversations with the Police. I meet with them, and I allow them, we meet in small groups.
Okay.
We don't come to like an auditorium, you have like 20 guys. No, my sessions are no more than like 8 to 10. because I want each person to be able to interact and ask questions. And I can also tell you that I've also conducted sessions at a few of the colleges here. There's one HBCU in Daytona Beach, Bethune-Cookman.
Yeah, I was about to say Bethune-Cookman.
Yeah, Bethune-Cookman. And one evening back in 2019, that was around October, I reached out to, I have a friend that works there, and she put me in contact with 2 black men advisors at BCU. And I told them, hey, you know, all I'm trying to do with CWP is to get black boys and black males to interact with police officers, you know, just to have a conversation. So that once they start driving, this is for the middle school and the high schools, once they start driving, I want them to not have so much angst. Am I trying to, do I tell them, oh, you should not feel that way about, no, I don't tell anybody how to feel because I understand the distrust. What I'm trying to do is put them in a situation and say, okay, well, at least have a dialogue. Ask questions. Ask what they're allowed to do when they stop you. You know, find out from them, you know, let them know how you feel as a black boy, as a black male when they stop you. Give them a perspective. That's basically what we do. So with BCU, one of the best sessions we had, they've all been successful, but I'm pointing this out for a reason to say, the session I had with BCU, it was 12 young black college males. They were all maybe like sophomore, juniors. 12 came out with their advisor. We met one evening. What I like about doing sessions with college ages, because they can drive and they can get to, because I feed them. Every session we have, so anybody listening to me, I'm from Chi-Town, I'll bring my program there. If you know in the office, I feed you. I bring snacks, and, you know, we have pizza. So the good thing the reason I like facilitating with the college age, because I can say, okay, we can meet at 7 in the evening. Does that work for everyone? They met me at a local pizza place. I fed them pizzas. We had soda. I had a police chief there and a sergeant. And my husband, you know, he came. The guy who owns the pizza place, he gave me the back room. Brian, that session lasted for 2 hours. And you should see the body language with the young men and the boys. In this case, I am going to call them young men.
Yeah, those are young men, yes.
But you should see the body language when they first walk in, and because the way the sessions are set up, typically the chief, who's my co-founder, you know, I put together my guidelines, and I should, at some point, I need to get a mission statement to you. So remind me of that, you know, when you and I speak off camera.
Not a problem.
So that you can kind of see what the mission is. But we decided, okay, when possible, when we're holding the sessions, when I have 1 or 2 police chiefs or a captain or an officer come out, unless it's during the day and the officers or law enforcement officers are working, we have them not come in uniform. But if it's during the day, then they have to be in uniform. But if it's in the evenings, we decided, nope, don't just, you know, come dressed down.
I like that.
It's not all that tension. So,
I like that.
But because the young men knew, because their advisor told them, yeah, you know, this young lady, Miss Cormack, she has this program. I, you know, signed us up to go, you know, Thursday evening. She's going to, you know, buy pizza, blah, blah, blah. So they knew what they were coming for. So at least for the young men, it's always interesting to see the body language, even with the middle school, because remember, middle school is during the day, and the officers, they come with the police, they have the uniforms on. But I say this to say, it's always interesting to see the body language. So for the BCU students, you know, one thing I love my brothers, I love my young sisters. They are so honest. For the young brothers, they just told the police chief and the sergeant, they said, I'm gonna be honest with you. You know, when Mr. So-and-so told me we were coming this, at first I wasn't really interested. I was like, nah, I don't want to go. That was in the beginning. But then as I do an icebreaker, you know, I talk about sports, you know, I have to kind of be big on sports, you know, most men are into sports. So I do icebreakers before I start my session. They don't just walk in and right away, oh, you know, anybody have any questions for the law enforcement officer? No, we don't do that. I do icebreakers to get them warmed up. Like, okay, you'll be on the team with Police Chief Brian or whatever. You'll be on the team with Chief. Then I give like sports trivia, and that's to warm them up. So by that time, okay, now they're getting to know these officers, and the officers are getting to know them. Now we're human at this point.
Right.
You're not an officer. You just happen to be your white or black male sitting in front of me, and you happen to be a police chief. But first we're going to start off just interacting as 2 people who like sports. So when I say that to say, it's interesting to see the body language, and they're a little reticent. But then, then I'll open it up for questions or who want to share an experience. Once we do that, the conversation just flows. By the end of that 2-hour session, they were walking up to the police chief and the sergeant. Well, I'm really glad we did this. They were getting business cards. But I tell you, again, I don't know if it's a cultural thing. Black people are very honest, and we will tell you how we feel. And they were sharing things. They say, well, I don't like the police because, you guys do this. And why do you have to do this? Why do we see a presence of police officers around BCU? You don't really see officers patrolling white institutions like that. So they come with all of these questions, and that's how we have the dialogue. So as you might know, and stop me anytime to ask questions, but I was just going to say, as you might know, of course, a session I do with middle schoolers, we're talking 6th, 7th, 8th grades. Now, of course, the conversation is going to be different than if I'm conducting a session with high schoolers or with college. Middle school, sometimes, I have at least 8 or 9 boys regularly that I've done sessions with in middle school. And, sometimes, and I'm used to it. It's a little bit of, can you guys stop talking over each other? Stop horse playing around. But once they get settled, they bring their focus back and they interact with the officers. But again, we only do those during lunchtime, and I think for that age group, that's kind of good to keep it to the lunch period. But college males, it's a little different because you can go for like 2 hours and they're coming from a different level, a little different mindset. So that's what CWP is. And I have even conducted sessions over Zoom because where we are now with Zoom and like what you and I are doing, I don't have to just do the sessions face to face.
Right.
That's how I prefer to do them. And that's what I'm going to continue to do while I am here because I need the face-to-face interaction with the boys, the young men, and the police officers and the police chiefs. But I can tell you that I have also facilitated sessions via Zoom just to get people to interact with police officers. It's not easy because, some black males, they don't even want to have the conversation.
Okay, what are some of the more difficult questions, and how did the okay, you know what? I got a question. My buddy James says, let me push James. Do you have to pick the officers, or excuse me? Do you have to pick officers that are cool and down to earth?
That's a very good question from James. Here's the thing: when I set up this program, and I met with first, Ryan, let me kind of backtrack and say this. Am I talking too fast? Was I clear on how?
No, okay. You're fine.
Okay, because
fast as I talk, don't worry.
Okay, one question. I'm very passionate about what I do. That's a good question. When I sat down to start this initiative, and again, this is when I feed. Let me just say this too. When I feed these, this is out of my budget. But I can say, and I'm going to get back to the police question, I have so much good support from the Police Chiefs Association that they donated a check to me because they support what I'm doing just that much.
Okay.
So I just
awesome.
want to acknowledge that blessing. But when I sat down and put this initiative together, and I met with the police chief over coffee, we both said, okay, which officers and police chiefs and captains or sergeants do we want involved? We only want the ones there who want to be there. Now, I don't know the officers as much as the police chief. He's the police chief. He knows his officers better than I would. So that's a very good question from James. We've made the decision, no, we're not going to ask a police officer to come out who wouldn't want to participate in this. So once I set up my session and I have the okay from the administrators at the school, I'm hoping one day to do CWP like in the summer outside of school. I just need to get more participants, and that's having to get parents to get on board with me, and I haven't had that yet. But how do I pick the officers? Since I've been doing this for 2 years, mostly the police chiefs facilitate sessions with me. I might have 1 or 2 police chiefs, or they'll bring a sergeant or one of their captains. When it comes to the officers, I allow them, they'll say, okay, officer so-and-so, I'm going to send him to your session. Because they know. I would like to think that all officers will want to be a part of this. But that's not realistic. Even though the police chiefs that I've met, they're all cool, and I interact with them all the time via email. I even have a few of their personal cell phone numbers. They're all cool with me, but that doesn't mean that all of their officers are cool. We got to be realistic. So to answer James' question, I don't choose, but since I've been doing this for 2 years, I kind of know who I can text or email and say, hey, I'm having a session at Campbell Middle. Which one of you guys can be available? So the ones that I work with, they want to be there, they're cool, they're down to earth. As I grow CWP, for example, I have my first lady officer. She happens to be Caucasian. She's the first lady officer I've had to come out because, again, I don't know what their schedules are. And when I ask the police chief, if either they'll come or they'll send a sergeant or a captain, I actually was able to finally get a female officer. She came to the last session. In fact, we're going to be in 2 weeks over coffee, so I can get more feedback from her as a lady officer on, what we can do once we start getting more girls involved. So I hope if James is still listening, if I didn't answer your question, hit me up. But we definitely only have the cool ones and down to earth. And that leaves that up to the police chief to say, okay, Miss Kathleen, I'm going to send Officer Brian. I can make the session today, but Officer Brian is going to come.
With
that's how we do that.
With that question being asked, has there been any uncomfortable moments? Because, I remember the conversation with Lamont. You said Lamont asked a few difficult questions. Have there been any unnerving situations where you can clearly see it may be leaning too far left?
Unfortunately, I haven't had that to happen much, and I'm going to tell you why. Now, remember, CWP, conversation with the police, let me be clear and say, and again, I'm going to get a mission statement to you only because I think you should have it.
Okay.
Because it's not the first time you and I are going to interact.
Not at all.
I can see us kind of branching off.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
But when I put this initiative together, I specifically have on my mission statement, it's targeted for black boys and college students. I'll say ages. My mission statement might say ages 11 to 24. Ages vary.
Mm-hmm.
So I say that to say, although I have done a Zoom session, and Lamont and a couple of other young men in their 20s were in on the Zoom. Now, of course, I wasn't going to have middle school and high schoolers in on that.
Right.
My mission is primarily targeted for black boys and young college students. However, because I still think the dialogue needs to take place with black males specifically, particularly in law enforcement officers, that's when I think it gets more uncomfortable when you have, because, middle schoolers, even though they'll tell the officers, you guys stop me, because I wear my hair in locks. I may have seen maybe an officer just kind of feel like he was surprised to hear that. But the only time I really saw a little bit of, it never really gets too crazy that I have to step in. I don't want to use the word crazy, but to answer your question, I can say that the session that Lamont was in on, that probably had to be the most intense because, Lamont's what, a 40-something, I don't know.
No, Lamont not 40 yet. Lamont not 40 yet. I think Lamont 39, like 38, 39.
Okay, well, he over 25.
Yeah.
and I don't even want to mention, Lamont. But it was a very interesting conversation, but the fact that he's 39 or what have you, he's going to ask questions that's going to be a little different than what the police chiefs and or captains might get from a middle school or high schooler. So to answer your question, I would say that particular session was one that was very interesting because Lamont was coming with some hard questions. He asked, I had a police chief, I had 2 police chiefs, and one, and I'm not going to use any names just for the sake of the...
No problem. Not a problem.
And I have one captain he's a black, the captain is black, very cool. He's like my right-hand man as well. He loves doing CWP. And I like the fact that he's an officer, he's a captain, but he also happens to be a black male.
Mm-hmm.
He was in on this session that we had done with Lamont and a couple other young men. So Lamont asked the question. He had several. And there was one question he asked, and I noticed the captain, who was black, he wanted to get in there and answer. And Lamont said, no, I want the police chiefs to answer. So I can kind of see there was a little bit of tense there.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So yes, it has happened, but you kind of have to expect for it to happen because we're talking about black males, and I'm not painting a
right. We're speaking in generalities. We're definitely speaking in generalities.
But the reality is, you're talking about. And sometimes I think to myself, Brian, girl, what are you doing? You trying to get black males of all people to talk to police officers? And I talked to myself back and said, yes, that's exactly what I'm trying to do, because we need to have dialogue. I want there to be change. And if this is the way I feel like I can create some kind of change by telling my brothers, hey, look, let's at least have the conversation. Let them see your perspective on things. So to answer your question, yes, there's that particular session. I can sense that there was a little bit of, the chief's not answering quite like the mom of one of the other young black men, like, that's your answer? So,
right.
Yeah.
But you know what? I'm glad you said that, because I'm glad it's good to make them uncomfortable, because if you are in a position of power, you need to know what uncomfortable feels like. So the next time somebody out there on those streets and they get you make them uncomfortable, hopefully you have something humane inside of you that'll reflect upon that. And with that being said, I got a question about my man Ray the Kev. He said, do you think this program has an effect on bad police officers? Good police officers are going to be receptive to our concerns. I think he meant our concerns. The bad police, we need to know how to deal with the bad police.
That's a very good question. And that's an excellent question, because my next goal is, how do I get the officers that are not so great to get on board with CWP? Because, of course, so far I haven't had a bad officer at my session. These officers want to be there. And they're primarily white. I feel all the police chiefs are white except one. They want to do this program. They're like, Miss Kathleen, we're glad you started. They want to hear what these black boys have to say. They want to hear their perspective. I would love to get some police officers who are quote unquote not so great to sit in on a session. And I believe over time that would happen, because that's my goal. Because he's absolutely right. We need to get them to sit in on this conversation and, hopefully have them to go home and think, wow, maybe I need to look at it from that perspective. Yeah, you do. So it is my hope and my goal that the not so good officers will at some point want to participate. What I can tell you about police chiefs here in this county is they do programs. I shouldn't say programs. I'll say trainings. They have ongoing trainings at their police departments where their officers, and I'm sure they have some that's not so great, where they have to attend these trainings that make them uncomfortable.
Is that the county that Val Demings used to be in charge of?
No, she's in Orlando.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because I know they're doing a lot of progressive things in her county as well.
We met. Yeah, she used to be the chief over. I think it's Orange County, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Yeah, over in Orlando. We met. She came to speak at a dinner event a couple of years ago. We didn't get a chance to meet her, but she was there and she spoke. Because we're really involved with like the NAACP and the Black Caucus here. So she was the guest speaker.
Okay.
I would hope to one day connect with her, because somebody even said to me, with your program, with her being a former police chief as a black woman, you need to meet her and connect with her. So my prayers to God, I hope that one day that could happen.
Val is heavy on Twitter too.
Yes.
Better reach out to her. To her, man.
I think
Val Deming would love this.
Her once. I did write a letter to her office, and I understand when I don't hear back, but I did reach out to her one time, but in time it'll happen. Because again, here's a black woman who used to be a police chief. So I hope that answered his question, and I'm hoping that yes, we can get bad police officers to hopefully change their mindset. But the trainings that they have in their departments, I'm sure that those trainings that they have to go through are helping them to see things in a different perspective.
And my buddy D from Fine as Wine Cooking Channel. I need people to support D. If you see Fine as Wine, one word, Cooking Channel, please subscribe to his channel as well. He's a good brother. He's here in Chicago with us as well. He says, I'll put it on the screen. Kathleen, I wish we all could say we had those great interactions with police. I've had a police officer act as if he wanted to kill me for absolutely sitting on the wrong side of the seat. And yeah, that's tough.
And you know what? Thank you for that comment. And I'm not going to sit here and say that, okay, let's break down great interactions with the police. I wish we could say we all have. Okay, remember, I'm talking about interactions that I do because of the program. Now, so, I just want to make sure that I break this down and say, of course, I would like to have every great interaction with the police. But that's why I'm doing what I do. Is it realistic to say that we're gonna have good interaction with the police? No, it's not. But what I'm saying is that's why I started CWP, so that I can open up the doors to have this dialogue, so that in time these officers will hear the perspective of the young black male or young woman or whatever right now is particularly black males, so that we can start helping foster better interaction with the police. That's the whole purpose and mission of my program. So that's why I do what I do. I'm not sitting here saying that, oh, they have all these great interactions. We're interactive because we're in a controlled setting, and that's the purpose of the program, so that we can talk to each other. And the finest wine, I hope that kind of sheds some light, because that's the purpose of what I do, is to help foster better interaction with the police. That's why I started the police. That's why I started the initiative.
Yeah. Patosh said police bleed blue, meaning that they stay together. Maybe then James came back with maybe the Chiefs could have an incentive program. Incentivize the program.
Yes, could they elaborate on that? Because the Chiefs here do trainings within their departments. Can they elaborate?
And then James came back and said, even if they don't participate and talk, they could be in an environment where they have to see the effect of their actions, which is
they do that. Yeah, the police chiefs in this county that I'm in, they're big on community policing.
Okay.
So again, my initiative CWP is my own little thing that I do.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But again, these police chiefs, from what I've seen and witnessed, they are very heavily into community policing. So that is taking place.
I think he means they can watch your interaction with the young people and the other officers and hear the young people's response to the officers who are acting erroneous. Because like Nate Parker, he has this movie called American Skin. You watch that is something I believe a lot of police officers are thinking like those officers were thinking. And if they can see that people in our community and throughout the United States of America feel the same way those brothers felt in that movie, in real life, I don't think it's going to change. Look, when you got a jerk is going to die a jerk. A bigot is going to die bigot. But even if you slow down, if it's 10,000 cops and we can slow down 500 of them, that means, hell, 3,000 people going to be 3,000 people not going to get beat up. And that's what we're looking for, because we're not going to change an environment.
I think that's why I believe that I have done that with CWP.
Yeah, I agree.
19, and having these interactions. Some of these white officers who are now, because they're still law enforcement officers, they interact with the community, but having them to get one-on-one in an intimate environment with maybe just 6 or 7 young black boys and talking one-on-one, they are starting to see a perspective, because I am putting them in a situation and saying, and I tell them, in fact, my co-founder for CWP, he had me come out to one of their monthly meetings and do a presentation on what I'm doing, and that's when they were so kind to donate to me. So I stood up before this room filled with police chiefs and whatever, and I shared what I was doing, gave them a rundown of CWP, and I said to them, I said, I'm not going to say all black males and all black boys don't like the police. And I'm not going to say that, because I talk to some boys and they're like, no, I don't have a problem with them. I like to interact. It may be a few, but I've had that. But I tell them, these boys, I told them, just as you want them to see you as human beings, you need to see them as human beings too. And I can tell by that I'm pretty straightforward. So trust me, I'm trying to go to bat for I'm an advocate. I'm trying to go to bat and advocate for young black boys as much as I can, by offering them a voice. And I would think that I've done that by putting these officers in a situation where they're listening to these black boys and they're understanding. Can I give an example? One of the sessions at the middle school, this kid, he wears his hair not locks, but kind of twisted. You know how we
Right, we got a million ways to wear our hair.
We got a million ways to wear our hair. You know, the boys in middle school, yeah, they wear their hair different ways. So this officer, this police chief, he happened to be Caucasian. I think at the time, I think one of the captains were there who were black. But this boy, this 7th grader, he said to the officer, he said, you know, just because I wear my, and Ryan, again, you know, and I'm coming from a woman's perspective right now. You know, women, we're a little bit, you know, we're more nurturing, and, you know, and I have a heart for black boys. Because
we need, hey, Kathleen, we need to clone you.
Yeah, thank you. You know, so my heart just sometimes goes out because I know sometimes what they're up against. I'm not saying that they're not victims. No, I call them great. I call them kings. I'm like, look, I believe in you. I always tell my boys that, look, I believe in you. You can put your mind to it. You can do it. But anyway, so this one kid, you know, he told the officer, he said, you know, just because I wear my hair like this, you guys stop and harass me. And I can tell by the expression on one of the chief's face, I kind of read his expression. It's like he just kind of, I don't know if he felt badly just to hear that the boy had to say that. But again, you have to understand, this is a man listening to a young black boy telling you, this is a 7th grade boy.
12-year-old boy.
Yes, a
12-year-old boy.
Yes, telling you how he feels because of how he wears his hairstyle. So I say that to say, I believe that I am opening up a door that they see these. You have to see these boys as human beings. So what he wears his hair in little twists. Okay, so what his pants might be, that he's a human being. This is somebody's child. And that's what I am doing with CWP by having these chiefs. Hey, you have to see, you want them to see you as humans with that uniform on, you have to see these boys as human beings. And even if you are an officer or a chief or whatever, and you didn't see this perspective before, well, you see it now, and that's why I do what I do. I'm sorry, I don't mean to preach.
No, you're here to preach. Don't worry about that. You are here to preach. What I would like to make a suggestion. My little sister just popped in, right? And me and her were riding around the other day looking for her car. We was talking, she was in the car with me and you on the phone.
Oh, that's right, I remember.
And one thing that she brought up was, and this may be something that you could do in the future. She mentioned, my nephew is 20 years old. She says if she gets pulled over, she's scared to death with him in the car. So maybe you should have some moms have an interaction with the cap chiefs too, because
definitely.
That's something that never even crossed my mind. And she said she gets pulled over, he has dreads, and she's scared to death because something may happen to him.
And I bet you, I'm sure that there's some black women out there right now going like, I can relate, girl, I can relate. Now let me say this. I like that idea, and as I build up on CWP, and again, I'm meeting with the one lady officer, and we're going to sit down and have coffee, and I'm going to kind of get some feedback from her to kind of see where she's at. But where her head is and what she can, how else can I expand it? Let me say this though, Brian, unfortunately, sometimes when you try to reach out to certain parents, I have tried to make myself available, and because I want to do something like that. I love that idea because I was thinking it, but I first wanted to get the program, get my feet
up. Yeah.
It's been 2 years now, so I'm ready to do that. Unfortunately, sometimes parents don't reach back out, but I'm gonna maybe try that angle and say, hey, why don't you and your son come have this conversation? So, because when I'm doing my sessions, I will do role playing. So I'll say, okay, let's pretend you're being pulled over, etc. So I like that idea, and it is my goal to do that. But I need for the parents to be on board with that. And sometimes you and I both know, let's just be real. Sometimes you get pushback from some parents. Some parents don't even want their sons talking to the police. Because some, I'm not saying all, you got to depend on,
Well, you know what, Captain, I would urge you this. Well, this is just a suggestion. Don't get frustrated because look at it this way. In 1965, when the great Malcolm X was assassinated, 75% of the people didn't like him. 64% of the people didn't like MLK in 1968. So now they're heroes. So that gives you cause to pause and look at it and say, you know what? If they didn't like them, hell, people didn't like Jesus.
Exactly.
You know, so
Right.
every time somebody's trying to do something right, you're going to be diametrically opposed to it. It's going to be people diametrically opposed. Don't get frustrated. Because sometimes I get frustrated with this. I love doing this. This, like people say, it's not on me, it's in me. So it's in you as well. So please don't get frustrated because, hey man, our folks, sometimes we just don't want to accept it, but we have to learn how to accept it. With that being said, we got about 4 minutes before we close out. I want you to give up some closing shots, and then I'm going to shut down the show, and then stay on, and then we're going to talk afterwards.
Okay, so you want me to give closing?
Yeah, parting shots, like in closing, things that you want people, how to follow you, how to support you,
right.
Things like that.
Okay, well, in closing, if anybody's interested, I guess they can leave your comment, or you can follow me on Twitter. That's the platform that I'm big on. And on Twitter, I'm at KInspire. KINSPIRE, like K Inspire 2. And I, because I'm an inspirational person, that's why I chose that. So you can follow me there. I would love to follow with you back. I would love to engage. And I would also like to get more involved in, so maybe we can set up a Zoom session at K-Inspire
2. My fault. I left off the 2.
Yeah, I think 2. Thank you. But yeah, they can follow me there on Twitter at K-Inspire. Yeah, I think I'm at, there's a 2 there. Thanks, Brian. But, they can follow me there. If you have any questions for me, I would love to hear from you. Thank you. And I would love to, my goal is to set up a Zoom session where maybe it can be, for example, your women like your sister and her son. And we do a Zoom. We keep it no more than like 10 people because I like the intimacy. And I can have a couple of, so that's down the line. But again, I think I'm grateful for what I'm doing. It's working. It's a great program. I look at it as just my way of advocating. And I thank everybody for listening. Reach out if you have any more questions.
Man, thank you for being on again, Kathleen. It's been wonderful talking to you as always. This is the End of the Bench podcast. I am HRap B. This is on Built for This Network on Spreaker.com. Please subscribe to Spreaker.com, Built for This Network. And then if you're looking at us on YouTube, the End of the Bench podcast, you have a link. Go to the link, hit the subscribe, hit the like, hit the bell. Thank you. I'll be back on Saturday with another panel and back on Tuesday. Every Tuesday at 5 p.m. I will be here giving you information about how to do. It is the show is called The End of the Bench because when I was an athlete, we used to sit on a bench and talk about life. And it's called Build and Destroy. Well, my goal in life, this is my life's mission, to build up our community and destroy the lies and propaganda around it. As I say every week, I want to send salutes out to people who would motivate me and people who inspire me throughout the years. Those people are people that me and Kathleen both have a whole lot of reverence for. I'm not sure if she has reverence for some of these people, but she's definitely going to identify with some of these names. Brother Tariq Nasheed, Brother Nori, Talib Kweli, Ray Grady, Zoe Williams, Corey Holcomb, Craig Smith, Reverend Al Sharpton, Heather B., Clay Kane, Larry Daniel Favors, Joe Madison, Baba Greg Carr, and Queen Mother Karen Hunter. Thank you for the inspiration. And my number one inspiration outside of my parents, my mother and my father, God rest both their souls, and my grandparents, but my family, my number one inspiration was my main man, the late great Reggie O'Shea, who went from being an entertainment lawyer to being a podcaster. We call him affectionately the Pod Father, rest in peace. And he used to end his shows by saying, dream those dreams and man up and woman up and live those dreams, because life without dreams flows in black and white. Life with dreams flows in technicolor surround sound. Y'all already know I say 2 fingers. I say 1 word. This is HRap B, and I am out.
We are Built for This Network, for the strong, not the weak.